Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Dacqualente. I'm the Executive Director here with the MBA, and I'd like to welcome you to another webinar today brought to us by a team at Schneider Downs. Appreciate everyone joining us this morning. I believe it's a really important topic and something that's interesting that everyone can be and should be implementing in terms of their business and what it can do for them. So again, give it another minute here as folks start to join. We'll just cover some basic housekeeping items that I'm sure everyone is familiar with now that we are into the 11th month of this pandemic and more virtual meetings than in-person meetings for many of us. But again, if you, regardless of the connection method, if you can make sure that you are muted when possible. We do have a question and answer feature through the Teams application here. If you can utilize that Q&A section for any questions you might have during the presentation today, we'll be able to review those as the presentation goes along, and obviously have time at the end for any feedback and dialogue with the team from Schneider Downs. As you can see, we will be recording this webinar today, and we will make sure that we get that out to everybody following this session. But at this point here, we're 11:01, so I'd like to turn it over to the team at Schneider Downs. I'd like to welcome Ted Pettko, who's an audit shareholder from Schneider Downs. He'll introduce the rest of his team and get us into this really important info session on data analytics and where the opportunities are for you and your business. Ted?
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the opportunity with the MBA. But as we see the digital transformation occurring across all industries, from cloud-based solutions to automation to data analytics, it's transcending. And in terms of data analytics, we've heard, how does this apply to me? What are the benefits? Do I have the data? Where can I use it and where do I start? Our ADAPT team, and you'll learn the acronym here, it's been working with our construction industry groups in developing these solutions. And we began just from an internal audit perspective of just our clients, but then we moved to an external focus. And this focus drives the goals and the solutions that we want to try to achieve for our clients. It's executive insights, managing job risk, and optimizing meetings and processes. These solutions empower companies to be more efficient and to make more data-driven business decisions with confidence and clarity. So I'll turn it over to Matt and let him begin with the presentation.
All right, thanks, Ted. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you, MBA, for inviting us to speak today. My name is Matt Kraemer. I'm a senior manager at Schneider Downs in our automation and data analytics process team, or ADAPT for short, as Ted mentioned. We're really excited to be here with you. I know I saw a lot of new names in the registration list, and we're always happy to get in front of some new faces, even if it's virtually through the computer screen. So with that in mind, we thought we'd provide a brief overview of who we are and what we do at SD Adapt. So we have a short agenda here. We'll talk about Adapt and data analytics overview. We'll go through some data analytic common terms and some concepts, really just to give you some additional context for what we're going to spend the majority of our session on, which is how you can actually implement data analytics into your organization and start saving time and money. So we're going to do that by going through a demonstration of some of the tools and the templates that we've designed specifically for the construction industry with the input of our clients and other companies that are going through this challenge right now. So if we go to the next slide, this is who we are, right? So this is our ADAPT leadership team. Myself, Robert Morgan, Chris Kosty, both of which you'll hear from in a few minutes. We're a little unique compared to some other data analytic teams and companies because we have some varying backgrounds, right? So Robert spent a number of years as an engineer in a construction company before spending the next 15 years or so working in technology world with some system implementations and data management, where Chris and I are actually both CPAs. So we started in the audit department at Schneider Downs a number of years ago, and we're able to provide a little bit of a different viewpoint from the financial context for all of our data analytics as well. And beyond us as the leadership team, we have a number of data analysts and programmers and system specialists on our team to help with the different aspects of each engagement. So what is ADAPT? This slide just breaks out what we do and how we help our clients. So like I mentioned before, ADAPT is an acronym for Automation and Data Analytics Process Team. And we really just focus on all things data. All of our engagements are highly customized and configured to meet our clients' needs and their goals. So the engagements take a lot of different forms. But on the left-hand side here, we have a couple different categories under the what we do heading. And we try to break them up into these categories, but in reality, most of our engagements involve multiple, if not all of these items. Like I said, everything is very customized, and we make sure that we're meeting your needs as a client. So we really think of these categories as steps in the data analytic process, as opposed to standalone engagements or projects. So the first bullet there is manage. This can mean a number of different things, right? It can mean installing and configuring and integrating a data warehouse into your organization, which really allows you to build data analytics on top of it. It's really the foundation of a good data analytic process. Or it can mean extracting and transforming and loading your data into a data analysis platform. Or it could be, just providing best practice recommendations for how you store and manage your data. The next is discover. And this is identifying outliers and the exceptions and the trends in your data. This can be on an ad hoc project basis to help you with a specific issue. Or this can take the form of, automated exception report creation and distribution that's more of an ongoing thing in your organization and just part of your process. Solve is really just the next step. So we identified the problem or the exceptions, and now what do we do to fix it? So this is searching for those opportunities to improve, whether that's getting more efficient with your processes or making your operations more profitable, or a combination of both, really. So lastly is visualize, and this is the deliverable aspect of our projects. So displaying the data using charts and graphs, often in the form of dashboards, which I'm sure you've heard of. And when done right, these dashboards and this visualization really makes communication of issues and opportunities easy across your whole organization, particularly if you're in a remote environment. So that can mean everyone's home office, right? Or it can mean, between headquarters and the field. So all the tools that we recommend and we'll go through today are accessible on your mobile phone and your tablets, which just makes it easy to review analysis no matter where you are, really. We also do a lot of overall data and technology strategy consulting work. So we help define your strategy and then help you carry it out. And I mentioned this previously, but our engagements really take a lot of different shapes and sizes. They can be implementation style projects, and that's what we're going to cover today, really, where we're installing and configuring platforms into your everyday process. But they can also be one-time and ad hoc projects, or even like data analytics as a service, where there's a number of projects that you have in your pipeline, and we just help out with those projects on an ongoing basis. Okay, so this slide, it just has some of our qualifications and certifications. This is really just more for your reference, so I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but everyone on our team's been trained and certified in data analytics and a number of specific data analytic softwares as well. And we do this just to ensure that we can bring the best data analytic program to you in your organization to make the best fit. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Robert Morgan, and he's going to touch on some of these key data analytic concepts.
Thank you, Matt. So as Matt said, my name is Robert Morgan. I'm going to spend a few minutes here just going over a few things. As he had mentioned, some common terms. So you're going to be hearing and seeing some of the things that are in the Adapt for Construction solution. So we want to kind of lay some groundwork for that with some of the common terms that you'll be seeing and hearing about. And then one of those is a data warehouse. So I'm going to show you a visual of a data warehouse and how that can play an important role in your organization if you don't already currently have one. And then lastly, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the Adapt for Construction solution itself. So first, let's talk a little bit about a data warehouse. As I had mentioned, it plays a very foundational role in the solution you're going to see. And there's actually a couple common complaints that we hear with our clients. And the first one is that their systems don't talk to each other. So really what that means is they're disparate, they aren't integrated. There's important data that resides in those systems, but it's difficult, to get at that data into a single place for them to be able to report on or see in their dashboards. The other thing we hear is that their people are spending a lot of time getting at that data and less time actually analyzing it, and that's kind of tied into the first one, in that they're disparate. But in essence, there's a lot of time spent on the mechanics of getting at the data and less time doing the most important piece of it, which is actually analyzing the data that you need. So a data warehouse's function is really to house the information you need and to get it in there in a timely and an efficient way from the systems that you use on a day-to-day basis to run your business. So the next thing is the reporting and the visualization of that data, or dashboards. Visualization is just a different way of saying dashboards. But really, that's kind of what people end up seeing. It's kind of the result of the data itself. And there's really two types. There's formatted reports. So those are your structured reports, like your financial statements or your WIP reports, things like that. And then there's dashboards, so a graphical way of representing the data that you have in your data warehouse. Then the last term is data analytics. And this really is, what do you do with that data? And that really falls into four buckets. There's analyzing historical data, so that's more descriptive and focused around the past and what happened. There's a diagnostic approach, which is really trying to answer why something happened. Predictive, so really looking to, again, predict what's going to happen next. Or are you looking to understand what to do next, which is more of the prescriptive model. And as a group, what Adapt has been seeing in all kinds of spaces, not just construction, but that they're looking for tools that have capabilities to make things easier to predict and maybe even prescribe what to do with the data that they're seeing. And this really has to do with the onset of machine learning and artificial intelligence, and that becoming more prevalent in the tools that are out there, of which Chris will be showing you later one today. So the next thing I want to do, I mentioned I would show you a visual of a data warehouse. And I want to do this because, the proverbial picture is worth 1,000 words. So go ahead and advance there, Chris. So in this example here, you can see that there's, a few systems. I had mentioned, that they're disparate, they're not integrated, they don't talk to each other. And that really creates a need to get at that data, which usually is manual. Or can be for one or more of these systems that you need to get that data out. And really what that leads is to a number of processes that can lead to inefficiencies during the days and weeks that it takes to get at that data. You may rely heavily on spreadsheets to accumulate that data and manipulate it. And ultimately turn it into something that somebody ends up needing to look at in the form of a financial statement or a WIP report or a job cost detail report, or maybe even a pivot table or two to create some charts and graphs off of that data. But again, we tend to see heavy reliance on Excel and other tools, even multiple tools to do that. And then there's usually a handful of people who understand those processes and have to deal with that on a routine basis, whether that's for some monthly process or even weekly or even daily. And which gets to the last point, you have to do that all over again. So that obviously causes a lot of headaches and pain for the people who are doing that process. Also that leads to a number of issues. Those issues can be, take form in bad data, inefficiencies in processes, because you're obviously relying on people to do the actual work of getting that data out. I think an important point is the timing of it all. So the timing obviously leads to a lack of ability of people who need to get at that data to do something with it, to be proactive and make a decision off of that. But if your data is days, weeks, or sometimes even months stale, then that really leads to an inability to be proactive when you needed to be, which was when the issue first happened. So there's obviously a number of issues with that, and again, a data warehouse can help with that. Go ahead and advance the slide. So in a future state kind of a view, you could see here we have a data warehouse in the center, instead of an individual or individuals getting at that data and turning it into a dashboard or a report. And what really connects the two between your systems and the data warehouse is an automated routine to extract, manipulate, and load that data on whatever frequency you need to get that data timely and accurately into your reports, into your dashboards, allowing the key people in your business who need to get at that data to be able to make timely business decisions with it. And then off to the right, I was just kind of using some examples, maybe your operational system, maybe you start with that and you have, your WIP data, your job cost detail data in there, maybe some financial information from your general ledger system and some payroll. You can really start with whatever is important. The key with a data warehouse is that it needs to be scalable, something that will grow with you as your needs evolve and as you want to incorporate other pieces of data that are important to you to report on and visualize. So this is just an example. You can certainly start with any piece of information that's relevant and most important to you. Again, the key is to have a single place to have it, have that process automated, and get you that information timely and accurately. Another point here is you see this little picture of this bot that's a representative of an RPA, or robotic process automation routine, which we have a separate team that we work with in our Adapt practice. So there's ways to use functionality to automate what a human would otherwise do, and just kind of through that as an example, getting some information from a publicly available website where maybe there's some industry stats that you want to collect and incorporate into your data warehouse as well. All right, go ahead. All right, so lastly, just a quick overview of Adapt for Construction, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chris for the actual demonstration. So Adapt for Construction is, you can really think of it as a comprehensive solution for your corporate reporting, planning, and data visualization needs. It's really designed to meet all of those needs in a single solution, which is by definition a corporate performance management, or CPM solution, if you've heard of that term. And at the center of that solution is a completely configurable data warehouse. And then what that's allowing you to do is, again, like you saw on the previous slide, is integrate with your systems and store that key data that you need to report on, what you want and when you want it. So Adapt for Construction is the result of a partnership between Schneider Downs and industry-leading software developers, Microsoft and Solver. And as a result of that, we're providing you, again, that comprehensive single reporting, planning, data visualization solution developed specifically in this case for the construction industry. And in Chris's demo, you'll be seeing how the Adapt solution is designed to hone in on your company, job, PM performance, other things, based upon some key financial risk factors. So ultimately from that, you'll be able to proactively take action on those jobs that may be underperforming or maybe even at risk of underperforming. So Chris will be diving into some of the details on that. Just one of the other things I wanted to point out, obviously we're all living in the current COVID environment, but we've seen that that's forced companies, contractors, others, businesses in the construction industry, and just industries in general to adapt to the unexpected changes that resulted from that. How they run their business, how they run their jobs. And Chris is going to touch on a few ways that how this technology can be used to create alternative ways to work for your employees, and not only have them remain productive, but even actually improve their level of productivity. And lastly, before I turn it over to Chris here, although the Adapt for Construction has a number of out-of-the-box reports and dashboards related to the financial risk factors, Adapt for Construction is much more than that. It's designed to, not only help mitigate and adjust risk, but it's a comprehensive solution. So it can help with all of your reporting, planning, and dashboarding needs, like financial statement reporting or your budgeting and forecasting needs. So just keep that in mind. We're going to be focused on just a portion of what Adapt for Construction is. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Okay, thank you, Robert, and good morning, everybody. I've been introduced, but my name is Chris Kosty. I'm a manager in our Adapt practice. Matt and Robert have certainly set the stage for the demonstration. I'm going to be taking the next half hour or so walking through our Adapt for Construction platform, which is built on top of a Solver data warehouse and utilizes Microsoft Power BI for the data visualization aspect of things. To increase that performance, I am going to turn off my camera while we work through this, but I'll join everybody again once we're on the other side of the demo. So I will do that and pull up our Adapt for Construction platform. You can see this is web-based. This is the Power BI service where you would land to access the Adapt for Construction platform. I'm going to go ahead and blow it up into full screen just so we can get a better view and see what we're looking at here. So this is our landing page. There's a lot of different things to take in here. We do have the ability with all of our dashboards to brand them to your specific company. We are fictitiously the Schneider Downs Construction Group, LLC, with our logo there that Matt put together for us, and a few other things here to look at. So we're going to spend our time today walking through the company view and the PM view screens, bouncing back and forth between Microsoft Power BI and Solver from a reporting aspect. I'm going to balance showing some functionality of the two tools, as well as the content and analysis that we've put together utilizing this information. Some of the other options that we have on here, job view, we are going to see briefly, and that's really going to be looking at a dashboard for each individual job that you have on your WIP schedule. Going down the right-hand side here, we have key influencers and Q&A search. We're not going to cover those today, but at a high level, those are leveraging the artificial intelligence capabilities of Microsoft Power BI. Q&A search, easily explained, is just being able to type a question into a search bar about your data, and Microsoft Power BI will actually just return a response for you, either in a table format or in a visual based upon the question that you answered. So it's really easy to use for somebody who's maybe not as technically savvy, but still wants some information or answers to a particular question that they have. The Q&A search function is very valuable for that. Key influencers actually takes a look at your data and tries to develop groupings or clusters or identify like qualities of whatever data you're analyzing. So the one example that we typically give in this setting is we want to analyze our entire WIP schedule, look at every job, and identify what causes our gross profit percentage to decrease on a particular job. By using key influencers, Power BI is actually going to evaluate our data and find those like qualities, whether that be a particular region, a particular project manager, maybe it's financial or operational characteristics of those jobs, group them together and tell us what the profile of a job looks like where gross profit percentage is lower than the norm for us. So this can be really valuable in evaluating, historical jobs, trying to get into that predictive and prescriptive nature for, here are some qualities of our jobs that cause us to have poor performance. So going into the future, we can either, take those head on to mitigate them, or if possible, just avoid those risks in general. So those two are very valuable for us. Change order detail is just, a quick view of our change orders. We have this on here as an example just to show you that within Power BI, we can be at both a macro and micro level, getting all the way down to a detailed view of things if we desire. So that's on there by way of an example. Job query and data warehouse, we're not going to cover today either. But Solver, we have the data warehouse tag here is really just showing the tie between Power BI and Solver. And we'll show how those are connected as we click through our other views as well, so that we can get into the Solver reporting and other functionality that's available within it. So without further ado, I'll click into our company view here. And this is going to take us to a screen that is designed, for more of an executive or macro level view at our company as a whole. So there's a lot to take in here. I'm going to focus on a few different areas that we can walk through. But again, like Robert alluded to leading up to the demonstration, all of this content has the ability to be customized or reconfigured to fit the specific needs of your company. So maybe you don't need to look at a trending job cost by cost type. Maybe you want to look at some other metric. We can easily change those things in and out as you see fit. But a few things to take a tour around the dashboard here and show some of the functionality of Power BI. You can see in the top left, we have a map showing where all of our jobs are located. The larger the circle is, just means the higher quantity or count of jobs that we have located there. We have some tiles going across the top just to show us some high-level financial metrics, number of open jobs and unapproved change orders. We also have this average risk score here, which we're going to touch in detail in a few minutes. But really, this was one of the drivers for the initial development of the Adapt Work Construction platform, and that was being able to assess and analyze, risk of each of your jobs at a macro level to identify those outliers. Continuing down, we have a couple charts here showing, our job cost and change order metrics, and then in the bottom we have our risk rating scatter plot, which again we'll hit on in a few minutes here. And then just a couple top 5 charts showing, outstanding AR and change orders by owner. Some generic Power BI functionality to point out, which makes this tool really valuable, is the dynamic nature of all of the visuals we're looking at. So I think a quick and easy example is just to show if we want to look at every job that's just located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, if I just click on the Pittsburgh circle here, on the map, it's going to update the dashboard to show relevant metrics just related to the jobs that are located in Pittsburgh. So you can see our fiscal year to date gross profit had changed. All of our charts and graphs have changed to filter out any job located outside of Pittsburgh. Simply just select it again, and it's going to bring us back to the company-wide view of every job we have. You can also put in slicers to look at work by just a particular project manager if you desire, or the individual job level, which we'll click through in a different view actually to show how you can see these metrics for just one individual job. So a lot of different functionality here that's really useful and really helps you to answer questions that you have about different subsets of your data without having to, generate a new report or go into a new system or even pick up the phone and call somebody a little bit more familiar with that data. These tools are designed to provide you the ability to answer those business questions yourself and then follow up on them and give you some action items. A little bit more functionality to go through here by way of more of an example is in the change order volume and frequency chart. So you can see what we're showing here is the amount of change orders being submitted on a monthly basis and the number of those change orders to try to get an idea for the scope and timing of those things. What's cool here is we're showing this on a monthly basis, but using Power BI, we can actually drill up and down to change the time period without having to, again, aggregate any data, create a new report, things like that. So we can go up to the quarter or year level. Then we can actually go down further and look at the specific day of the month that our change orders are coming through. So, we're kind of scattered here, a little bit of aggregation in the middle, but this could be useful if you're having a lot of change orders that are building up either at the end of the month or the beginning of the month. It could be, indicative of trying to defer change orders or push them through into a particular period. It could help you to identify some, operational inefficiencies that you may have, which we'll see once we get down to a detailed level here. But really, again, we're trying to, use the capabilities of the tools to be able to answer those types of questions and review our data in different ways other than just a table or a report format. You can actually drill down a little bit further and look at each individual job and just scroll along and see how your change orders are coming for which particular jobs to really just, allow it to give you another level of detail. So I'm going to go back up to the month view here and show some of Power BI's AI techniques, one of which is called Quick Insights. And what that does is it looks at a particular data point on your chart or graph and attempts to explain why something has happened, why an increase or decrease has happened, why something is different than the norm, really. So I'm going to use the difference between June and July here for change order dollars submitted. So if I just right click on the July, hit Analyze and explain this increase, Power BI is actually going to crunch some numbers behind the scenes and provide me with a number of charts and graphs, as well as explanations on, maybe, what was the break of this change. It attempts to address why it occurred. The one in here that I wanted to stop at goes down to the location of the jobs and shows you, where are the increases in change orders being submitted occurring. So this may help you address particular things at a job site that you wouldn't have known by just looking at this data at a macro level. Power BI gives you the ability to thumb up or thumb down an analysis. So if I hit the thumbs up button, it'll remember that I liked the breakout by location, and as I continue to use Quick Insights, it'll attempt to draw back to that sort of analysis for us. So some of it's useful, some of it's not, but if you're having a challenge, diving into your data and identifying what potentially is going on, this may give you a good starting point and start answering some questions for you. So just click out of there. And the last thing I want to show with change order volume and frequency here, the ability to show this data as a table. So the charts and graphs are great, and they provide a lot of value in being able to identify these abnormalities. But some people, ourselves included, really just at times want to see the numbers. So just as easily, we can right click on July and we can do, we'll hit the show as table button in the top right. And now we see our chart and graph as well as the actual numbers and data feeding that information. And what's cool here is we can actually continue to use the drill up and drill down feature and see the numbers feeding this chart and graph, move with us as we continue to go through the different levels of the hierarchy. So now we're down to the job level, etc. You can even take this a step further and export this data into Excel. If you plan on taking it out of Microsoft Power BI and need to share it with somebody, that's an option for you as well. So I'm going to go back to the report, to the company view here, and show you how all of this data is being fed. So Robert showed the illustration of the data warehouse. And I think this example is going to take that illustration one step further and really show you what Solver's role is in feeding these dashboards, as well as what Solver's role can be from a reporting aspect. So anytime that you see a little icon here, the eye icon, we can actually click that, and it's going to take us directly to a particular Solver report that we have. So in this example, we were looking at the change order volume and frequency report, which was being fed by the data warehouse. And this icon is linked to take us directly to a change order report detail. So you can see we have a summary level here of all of our jobs, what their change orders were submitted and approved amounts. We have a lot of Excel functionality. So if this looks familiar to you, the report design mode for Solver is all driven off of Excel functionality. So there's, if you're familiar with using that tool, there's not a large learning curve in using Solver, but you have, your typical functionality. We can expand to see detail here. So again, we're jumping from the charts and graphs into a report to be able to look at the details underlying, those visuals. You can take this a step further and actually drill through into change order detail. So if I pick the food bank here, you can drill down. And since the data warehouse is storing all of this detailed information, it'll actually generate a report for us, which shows each individual change order that's feeding that aggregated total. So again, with just a couple of clicks, we're able to get from the company view visual all the way down to the actual detail of the change orders pretty seamlessly. And again, that value is being driven by Solver in the data warehouse. So one other thing to point out here is that we landed at the summary level, but just as easily, we told this report we may want to evaluate this by project manager or review, the job change orders report with each individual project manager during their PM meeting. So with that, we told the report to just expand and give us a breakout of each project manager. So if I click over to David Wallace here, you can see his 5 jobs. All of the detail is contained. We can still drill down to the detail a little bit further. And we can do this with any data breakout that we have. So we could do this by job type. Maybe we want the report to expand on region. Really, the options are endless as long as we're able to track and capture that data and store it within Solver. So I'm going to click back over to Power BI here, go back into our full screen view. And I want to talk about the risk rating. So you can see in our tile up here, as well as the risk rating scatter plot in the bottom left, the concept behind the risk rating is taking your WIP schedule and looking at each job on an individual basis, as well as compared to your entire portfolio of work on your WIP schedule. So currently we just have financial metrics feeding the risks. But just as easily, we could incorporate operational metrics, we could incorporate safety, we could incorporate some of those characteristics that we get out of key influencers to identify poor job performance. There's a lot of customization that's possible with the tool, but the idea behind it was to say, when you receive your WIP schedule or when you're reviewing which jobs are more risky, everybody has certain criteria or flags that they go to evaluate, to dictate whether or not something appears risky to them. And when we say risky in this context, we really mean jobs that kind of require your attention more closely than jobs that are operating, within your expectations. So as a particular job starts to operate outside of those expectations that you set, the risk rating is going to increase and draw your attention to that job to be able to evaluate and mitigate those risks associated with it. So the way the chart works is on the y-axis, we have a risk amount, which is the risk score 0 through 10. And then along the x-axis, we have the estimated cost to complete to get a feeling for, what's our remaining exposure on the job. So if we have a high risk score, a high estimated cost to complete, we have a lot of time left to go on that work with a lot of risk being carried there. So that may be a job that we want to focus on first. Each individual dot on this chart represents an individual job. And then just to put a little bit further context to it, we've also color coded it by project manager. So I'm going to pick on this dot out here. If you view this chart in kind of quadrants, your upper right-hand quadrant would be the jobs that you want to draw your attention to and focus on first. So unfortunately, Matt Watson has a couple jobs with a little bit higher risk here. So I'm going to pick on this one and just hover over it for a second. So this is called a tooltip. It's another feature of Power BI that allows us to get a little bit more information about something that's being presented on a chart or graph. So in this case, we have the farm dairy barn build out, which is the job that we're hovered over. Here are the 6 individual risk criteria and the scores for this job. And then we have a spark line too to show the trending of risk of this job over, a couple months or even year worth to identify, is this risk trending up? Is this always been a risky job? Is this something new? Again, just to put some more context into what we're showing and to be able to answer questions yourself within this platform instead of having to reach out to folks to get more information. So to take it a step further, I'm going to right click on the dot here and drill through into the PM view. So we're going to be taken to a different screen here. And now this is a dashboard that is looking at just Matt Watson, the project manager, and all of his jobs that he's currently managing. So again, to take a quick little tour around this view, we have the jobs that Matt Watson is managing. We have his risk score by individual category and his current risk. We have some overbillings and underbillings, AP and AR and his job locations, some job cost information, and then change orders and a couple financial metrics to evaluate. Again, to reiterate, the content being shown here can all be customized. So if you think of this in the context of having your project manager meetings or evaluating your project managers, if there are particular data points or criteria that you like to consistently evaluate, we would just pull that data in and represent it on here so that as you're working through those meetings together or those evaluations, you have the relevant information contained within this platform. To take the change order example from the report just one step further and to show how Power BI can actually retain that detail as well, we can right click on the change order chart here, drill through to our change order detail. And again, now we're looking at the change order detail, but within Power BI. So we're not even leaving, this environment. We set up some conditional formatting to show where the unapproved change orders are. We're even calculating our, days to approve for all of our change orders to identify any potential operational inefficiencies that we can work on. We have some conditional formatting for if it's in excess of 30 days, give it a red flag, so that when we're sitting down and talking with Matt Watson, we have the ability to understand, what's happening with these change orders. For these two in particular that are still unapproved, why is that the case, and really help drive our conversation instead of weeding through a change order detail report and looking for the needle in the haystack proverbially. So I'm going to click back over to our PM view. One other chart that I want to showcase here is the job cost by type trend. So again, this is somewhat of a duplication from the first view. So now instead of looking at it company-wide, we're looking at just Matt Watson's jobs and what's the timing and allocation of his job costs. So you can see pretty easily here that there's a lot of peaks and valleys with the subcontractor costs. Again, if we hover over them, tooltips will pop up and show us the actual dollar values associated with those. So we're not guessing by looking across to the y-axis, but we can see the actual numbers behind them. And pretty quickly, we can see that this is somewhat of an abnormal trend for what we'd expect. So one thing to point out is again, the data warehouse is feeding all of the data through Solver into Microsoft Power BI. And actually just contained within this one visual here is about 50,000 rows of data. So if you think of your traditional job cost detail report in what that looks like, trying to identify a trend or an abnormality in 50,000 rows of an Excel report is challenging, where now we're able to just look at this chart and see, okay, maybe there's an opportunity for us to improve our cash position as we're working through the job by blending these subcontractor costs over the life of the job and spreading out that work, as opposed to having these significant peaks and valleys. That may not be the case. Maybe there's a legitimate reason for these peaks and valleys, but again, it helps to drive the conversation and keep it pointed to ask Matt Watson what's going on with his jobs, and if there's anything that can be done to mitigate this, or if it's, you know, a legitimate reason for why this is happening. So a lot of times with data visualization, we like to say that an anomaly is not always an exception, but it does point your attention to the fact that something's going on, and you can get some resolution, an explanation on why that's occurring. So let's focus on the risk here a little bit. Again, we have 6 different criteria that are feeding into the risk score. Currently in this environment, everything is being derived from the WIP schedule, but just as easily we can use operational metrics, safety data, really anything else from that visual that Robert showed of, you know, existing databases, future databases, that can be incorporated into the risk calculation. And we truthfully want it to be driven by the clients that we partner with. Because there are nuances to every business, and nobody knows, you know, the data in their work as well as, you know, our clients. So we want their input, and actually the risk criteria are input by them through a budget template in Solver, and it looks at each individual job and applies a risk score to it and compares that to the aggregate. So in Matt Watson's example, we can see that the farm dairy barn build out is the job that's carrying most of his risk. So we can actually right click on that, drill through to the job view, and now we can look at a dashboard that is specific to the farm dairy barn build out. So on the right hand side here, you're going to see a lot of consistency from the PM view, but on the left hand side now we have some demographic information regarding the job and where it's located, as well as some scheduling information about, you know, what's the percent complete compared to when was our scheduled end date, and how do those two items line up. So, you know, if we're thinking of the context of being in a project manager meeting, you know, whether you're, you know, the executive oversight part of that meeting, or if you're the project manager yourself attending that meeting, you are equipped now with the tools and ability to be able to speak specifically to each individual job, as well as your entire portfolio of jobs in an efficient way. So I'm going to jump back over to Solver via the current risk score here. And as we do this, we're going to put on the hat of being a project manager, or again, the oversight, the individual charged with overseeing those project manager meetings from the executive team, and talk about how we can streamline some of the processes that go into those meetings. So again, I'm just going to click on the I here on the current risk. It's going to take us back to a Solver report, which is looking at just Matt Watson's jobs, their associated risk scores, and then the WIP schedule detail that's associated with those particular jobs. So
Hey, Chris,
again, yes.
Can you zoom in a little bit? It's a little hard to read.
Yeah. Okay. So again, Excel formatted view. We're looking at the report. Here's his individual jobs, the risk scores, and then the WIP schedule detail associated with those jobs. So why is this important to show? Well, you can see as Matt Watson, I'm signed into the Adapt for Construction platform. I want to drill through and look at my jobs, and it's only going to show me my jobs. So if you remember in our prior example, when we were at the executive level, we were looking at the change order detail, and we were able to see each individual project manager, click over to David Wallace, to Matt Watson, the summary view. All of that was available to us. Now we're at the PM level, and since like I said, I'm Matt Watson and we're wearing that hat. I can only see the data that's relevant to me. Why is this important? Well, we're actually developing one report here and then just assigning security permissions and using filters to drive what's available to each individual person. So now we have a consistent template report that each one of our project managers is going to use in our project manager meetings. So now we have consistency from meeting to meeting of what data we're looking at, what we're evaluating on a job-to-job basis, and then there's no changing or nuance for one project manager to another, which makes evaluating jobs, at a macro level a little bit more difficult if everybody presents their data in different ways. So we're templating out the reports that are being used within the project manager meetings. And then as the PM, we're only assigning Matt Watson the ability to review his own data so that he's not seeing data that's irrelevant to him. So a couple other things to point out from a solver functionality side. We have the ability to send this report to an archive, which we're going to go look at the archive in a second here. And basically that's just going to save a report for us using the existing parameters that we put into it, and allows us to access that report at a later date, or for our project manager meetings, which we're going to show. Another cool feature is you can actually use this comment box, and you create templates. So I'm going to apply this comment template here, and then I can comment as Matt Watson why certain risk criteria are what they are, and have this be stored to this report so that when I pull this up within my PM meeting, I have my notes ready to go, and anybody else who has access to that report can also see the comments that I've made. So by way of example, in gross profit percentage, say gross profit percentage down due to unbillable items and poor subcontractor performance. Okay. So you can, add as much to these as you want, as little, but really it's designed to streamline the communication of, if certain questions are coming, you can just answer them up front. So then as an executive, you're able to click into Matt Watson's, PM comments and just get the rundown of his jobs from him without having to necessarily set up a meeting or ask the question on, why does this look a certain way? You can set that up into these comment templates and have those questions addressed for you, so that when you do have your meeting, that lift has already been taken care of. So all you would do is hit save here, and again, it would attach this comment sheet to the report. We've already done that, so I'm going to click over to my archive and show you how that looks coming through. Okay, so this is our archive, and you can see that kind of looks like an email inbox where something that's not been read yet is bold and it has a little icon, and things that have been opened and read are a little bit more grayed out. So again, the archive is a place where we can send particular reports to be able to reference at a later date. One key feature here that's important to note is playlists. So you can group certain reports together and put them into a playlist. So we've made this PM monthly meeting playlist. So now I'm Matt Watson. I've run my reports, I've archived them and put them together into this playlist. I'm ready to have my PM monthly meeting. I just hit show playlist here. And now I have the ability to click through the 5 reports that I'm always going to review in each of my PM meetings. So again, the content here is, is what we've derived, but this all can be, configured or customized to your specific needs and your specific reports that you want to review during your PM meetings. So if you notice on this job risk rating by PM report, which is where we landed coming out of Power BI, we actually have our comment still associated with it. So now if I'm in the context of my meeting, we can be looking at here and say, why is our gross profit percentage down? Click over to our comments and we're already ready to go and our notes are here. Again, you can just click over to your different reports. So here's a trended job risk rating, the job change order by PM report. I'll zoom in here. We were looking at this earlier at a more macro level, but now we're just looking at Matt Watson's jobs. All of that same functionality is retained as well, where we can expand, We can drill down into the change orders. We could have added comments here, etc. So again, we're talking about streamlining these meetings, pulling together these reports, and having a platform for everybody to be able to collaborate, whether or not you're able to meet face to face. Now, in the remote environment or changing work environments that's has been going on for the past year and maybe going on into the future, this provides a one-stop shop for everybody to collaborate, get together, have these meetings in an efficient way. And one last thing to show in Solver before I turn it back over to Matt for some closing comments is a really important feature that helps to pick up these efficiencies even further, and that's called the Publisher module. So what the Publisher module does is it's going to generate, aggregate, and distribute reports for you on a scheduled or ad hoc basis. So if you can envision in the context of a project manager meeting, you can have those 5 reports that we just looked at automatically generate, distributed to the individuals that are going to be participants at that meeting, and show up to them in their archive without any manual intervention. So we're picking up a lot of efficiencies here, really helping with capacity increases of your project managers. We've heard from some of our clients and talking to folks in the industry that just aggregating reports on a monthly basis for project managers can take anywhere from 2 to 5 days a month. So if we're talking about automating the majority, if not all of that process, we're putting back, a couple days at least, a month worth of capacity back to your project managers to be able to spend time evaluating the results of the analysis, spend more time directly on their jobs instead of the mundane tasks of pulling reports, aggregating them, putting together a report, and distributing it. So just to click through here, if I hit the project manager reporting package, I'm just going to hit edit so we can look at what some of the capabilities are. You can pick which reports you want included in this package. You click your parameters, and then you can schedule it, pick your recipients, and say, I want this to occur daily, monthly, really whatever your desired frequency is, so that you're not coming into Solver, you're not going into your source system, running reports, exporting the data, manually aggregating it. You are having Solver and the data warehouse handle all of that for you, and you get to pick up on the efficiencies there from the administrative side. So that's it for Solver. I'm going to click back over to Power BI to our home screen, and I'm actually going to turn it back over to Matt Kraemer to give us some parting thoughts and kind of conclude the demonstration.
Chris, do you want to just jump to the last slide?
Sure. Yeah.
So we got about 2 minutes now. Chris, sorry, can you mute?
There you go.
Keep going to the Q&A slide. Just as a reminder, we are accepting questions, so it doesn't look like we're going to have time to get through any. But if you have any, just go ahead and drop them in the live event Q&A, and we can respond to you in an email afterwards. But we just wanted to conclude and say thank you again, everyone, for your time. What we showed you today is just templates and examples of how you can implement data analytics. And when it comes down to it, there's really just a couple of key propositions. First, these templates and data analytics in general are really designed to save you time. So as Chris mentioned, if your employees are spending hours and days compiling reports and analysis, there's a more efficient way to do things. Secondly, dashboards and automated reports, their primary kind of use is really to help communication, right? So if you're struggling to communicate findings, issues, exceptions, or opportunities, then data analytics can provide a chance for improvement in that aspect as well. So our contact information is up here on the screen, or you can visit our website, which is just schneiderdowns.com/data-analytics, which Ted just posted in the Q&A. We put out a lot of content through the Schneider Downs Our Thoughts On blog series, so make sure you're signed up to receive that on a weekly update if you're interested. And we'd love to hear from you, so please reach out. Thanks again.
Well, Matt, Chris, Robert, Ted, I really appreciate all the information this afternoon. I thought it was really in-depth and really gave some great examples of how this could be applicable for our members and for the industry and what you're providing and doing. So thank you again, and to everybody that joined us this afternoon, or rather this morning. We appreciate your time and look forward to having you join us on our next webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.